What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. There's some pretty cool news actually happened yesterday. Surprisingly, we're going to talk a little bit about Sega and some retro modernized news. An actual deal took place that has some Dreamcast, Saturn, and Sega fans in general excited. And we also did see that Katherine Remastered is a real thing and it got announced. Let's get started. So Katherine, the full body edition is what it's called. It's a remaster of the original Katherine that we played on the PS3 and the Xbox 360 back in 2011. And this comes from kind of the early pages, or really the early edition of Famitsu as reported. It's more of a Japanese announcement now though, and now more information has been released. And overall, this looks like it's going to be a pretty good remaster because they're adding a bunch of stuff. So if you see here, the development in this case is a collaborative effort between Atlus and Studio Zero. Now, Studio Zero was actually opened in December, which was interesting because they did pull the original developer from Katherine. This is kind of cool because this person's been with Atlus for a long time, even working all the way back on Shin Megami Tensei on the Super Nintendo. And this, of course, is Katsura Hashino. And they've also worked on Persona 5, also worked on Persona 4 Golden, basically a lot of the Persona games this person has worked on. And they kind of started this to work on another fantasy game. And I have a feeling back in December when it was formed, they had this idea to do a Katherine remaster, possibly working up towards maybe a Katherine sequel, a full-blown sequel, which would be really cool to see. So they're going to introduce some different plot points in this case, and they're actually going to introduce a third Katherine, or in his case, I guess, a third girl to the series that he will have a relationship with called Rin. It's not really, I guess it's just because the end of Katherine, some people are saying they'll spell Katherine differently, and it's just Rin. But they're going to add new endings, new episodes, anime movies, new events. Of course, the subtitle, while it kind of has a play on words for what it's about, it's more apparently from, in this case, the wine term of full body. That's somehow it's going to, I guess, interact with the game. A bunch of new difficulties, new mechanic where you actually move blocks where multiple are connected, online battles, and there's also cross-save support. So you might be wondering, what system is this coming to? Right now, as of now, it's coming to the PS4 and the Vita. Now, as soon as I heard that, I knew it was going to happen because I was a little shocked at this announcement too. I was almost positive just because of the way the Vita is kind of on its way out and the Switch is on its way in pretty much everywhere. I mean, in the US, you really can't even, I don't even know where to go buy a Vita if I want one, to be honest. I assume they put it on the Vita because they were probably working with Sony originally back in December when they were planning it. The Switch wasn't even out yet, and they probably didn't have a dev kit, so they were thinking, well, we'll go where the install base is, which is the PS4, and we want to put it on a portable system too, so let's slap it on the Vita because there's, over 5 million Vitas in Japan as well. That's my best guess at this because it's very odd that it's not on the Switch. Seems like a perfect place for it to land on that system, especially if they want it to be out west in the US as well, where the Switch is pretty popular currently. Of course, the PS4 is very popular too. Maybe we don't know all the details here. Maybe there's some backroom dealings with Sony. It's hard to say. I do know Atlus is a very conservative company from what I've known them as through the years. And this would at least make sense to really go after the biggest install base, which is the PS4, and then, hey, we'll put it on the Vita because we can fit it on there just because. I mean, we're already with Sony, so we'll slap it on their other system and provide cross-save support in case you want to buy both. Again, though, that seems like you would only have to buy one version then for the Switch if that was the case and get that same feature, since the system is a portable and a home console as Nintendo likes to market it overall. So it's a weird situation. I do understand that they are more on the side of Sony because Katherine sold the best on the PS3 everywhere pretty much. I think it was almost a 2-to-1 ratio to the 360, and it is backwards compatible in the Xbox One, so they really don't need to put it on the Xbox One. I mean, they're already selling the original version that they're now remastering for the PS4 and the Vita. They already sell it on the Xbox One on their marketplace. By the way, a lot of disappointment from Switch owners. I do think it'll still be worth picking up on the PS4. I don't know about the Vita version. That's the one that's kind of like this wild card right now. I like the Vita, don't get me wrong. I like my Vita, but I'm not sure if it's worth buying it on the Vita at this point, or I just get it on the PS4 and play it at home when I have a chance. I don't know. It's very odd. I'm going to be very curious to see how they fit this full game on the PS4 and then the full game on the Vita at the same time. It's going to be interesting. It will. I'm going to keep an eye on this because I'm hoping maybe there is a Switch announcement down the road at some point. I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think Atlus has any problem porting games back and forth if they need to. So keep an eye out for that too. Just because it's not announced for the Switch now doesn't mean it won't show up in the future. Next up, let's talk about Sega. And this is where things get pretty pretty awesome, pretty interesting, pretty exciting, if you will, for if you're a Sega fan or you're a retro fan in general. Sega inked a very interesting deal with Retrobit. Now, Retrobit, of course, makes accessories, the clone consoles, all this stuff for retro game systems. Super Nintendo, Genesis. I know they make Genesis controllers, I believe. Things like that, but they're not licensed, right? They're just Retrobit, and then sometimes people get them and they're like, they're all plasticky and junk and everything. They do make some better controllers, but for the most part, they would be kind of the bottom of the barrel, $10 controllers. I like this move, though, because Retro and Sega have now inked a deal to where Retrobit will provide licensed controllers. They will be manufacturing them, and according to them, it will be up to quality standards from Sega. They're going to be manufacturing controllers for the Saturn, the Genesis, and the Dreamcast. So not only are they doing that, they're also going to add more modern conveniences, as they've said. They're even going to do things like tackle Bluetooth support. Maybe for the Dreamcast, like let's say you have a controller and then it has a little dongle that plugs in to the original Dreamcast, it's going to then work through wireless. I would love to see a licensed, in this case first party, I guess, alongside Retrobit, a licensed, mass manufactured, easy to pick up Bluetooth controller for the Dreamcast. There are Bluetooth controllers out there, but it's through smaller groups that make them and everything. I would love to see just a mass manufacturer. I can go on Amazon, I can just buy it and it gets shipped to my house, and then I have a full wireless Dreamcast controller that's easy to obtain. That's the biggest thing, and under control for price. We'll say that too. I mean, a Bluetooth controller for the Dreamcast, $30 maybe, and it's quality. I'd even pay as much as $40 if it's a good controller that will last me for the Dreamcast. But it's super exciting. Maybe you're a Saturn fan, you're really happy that we might be seeing these new licensed controllers. Think about it, guys. In the year 2018, you'll be buying controllers for the Dreamcast that are licensed by Sega with the actual logo on it. And the big thing you have to realize is there could be a full future here between Retrobit and Sega if this goes well enough internally. Not necessarily sales, because they're controllers, people will buy them. But as long as logistically everything works out internally really well, who's to say they don't do things like tackle a Dreamcast Mini or tackle a Saturn Mini, right? I mean, there's some cool stuff that they could do here. We already see Sega does license like these with these clone consoles that have like 80 games built in or something. But I would love to see something tackled with a Dreamcast, maybe even a Dreamcast clone system. That'd be kind of cool too, with HDMI out and the full thing. Maybe they also go one step further. Instead of just controllers, maybe they tackle the fishing rod. Maybe they tackle a broadband adapter that isn't crazy expensive, right? There's a lot of stuff they could do with the Dreamcast, even the Saturn, and this could get really exciting, really fun. So I hope the future is bright for these two together, because that means we could see a whole resurgence of Dreamcast, because people still make games for the Dreamcast. We could see a whole resurgence for that market, and that would be awesome. Oh, and if you're going to CES this year, which I think is next month, 2018, in January, check them out, because they're going to be there. You can make an appointment, and you can check out some of their new accessories that they're not really talking about yet, and that's the first place they're going to show off this new partnership with actual products. I assume they'll more than likely be there with a Dreamcast controller, a Saturn controller, and a Genesis controller, but go check them out if you're there, because I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm very curious to see what they have to show. Next up, let's talk about the Escapists 2 on the Nintendo Switch, a game that I included in one of my videos talking about 5 Switch games that just disappeared, like what happened to these games. Well, that is a game that now has a release date, which is awesome, because I was getting a little worried about it. Team 17 gave us a release date, January 11th. It's going to retail for $19.99, and it's going to debut with things like multiplayer, which sounds really cool, even drop-in, drop-out, split-screen, kind of co-op or versus, I think. But I know there's going to be co-op, definitely, because that was one of the big things I was looking forward to, is a full multiplayer aspect to that game, and it's coming January 11th. It's not too far away. It's, 3 weeks or so? So that's pretty exciting to see that, because that's another game that's going to add to early 2018 for the Switch, and it does need more games in the first quarter of 2018. I think we're going to get some announcements from Nintendo, but it's good to see that the indie games that we've talked about that are very important for kind of between releases for the Switch to happen, between the big releases. Indie games really help cement those weights. So I like to see some of these games show up, and I think Escapists is going to work. The second one's going to work really well on the Switch with co-op action. Next up, let's talk about Soul Calibur 6. The Metro sat down with a developer from the Soul Calibur 6 team talking about guest characters and the Switch version, two things that people are very, very curious about. The Switch version, of course, people were told from rumors that one was happening. It appears one is not happening, so that, of course, was a question that came up. And then guest characters, because we're so used to guest characters, whether it's Spawn on the Xbox, or Link on the GameCube, or Hayachi on the PS2, we're always wondering who's next that's going to enter this arena. And, well, They're coming. Apparently there are going to be guest characters here, but they don't want to spoil it. In fact, they can't even tell us if they're going to be different on each system or what's going to happen here. Is there going to be one specific to the PS4? Is there going to be one specific to the PC and the Xbox? But they are coming and they want to surprise us. So I'm hoping it's nothing we can guess, right? I hope it's just something out there and crazy. I think that'll be really neat to see. But according to them, the Switch version unfortunately was not able to be done, specifically because of timetables. They said Soul Calibur 6 development started more than 3 years ago, and nobody knew anything about Switch back then. So as a matter of fact, we are not working on Switch as of now. But of course, personally, I'm interested in the platform. So if the Unreal Engine can adapt to Switch and evolve itself, then maybe the possibility will be more. I think this is something we'll see for at least the next year, I want to say, right? Maybe going into like the end of 2018, we'll stop seeing this because, yes, game development takes a while, and if you don't want it announced a year after development starts, like we see with Sony does, a lot of the games we see announced that are coming out like next year, right? We got this announced and it's coming out in 2018. They started that a while ago. In this case, they started 3 years ago. 3 years ago, what were we doing? People were talking about the Wii U, right? The Wii U was in, I don't want to say full swing because it was never in full swing. I guess the first month it was, and then it stopped. But it was either in their mind, they were like, all right, we're going to put it on the PS4, we're going to put it on the Xbox One, and then they looked over at the Wii U, right? I mean, they're not going to put it on the Wii U. Let's be realistic here. The Wii U was not a good system to put games on from third parties. They know that. But the Switch, of course, was, I'm sure, in Nintendo's mind at the time. I think they wanted to make the Switch when the Wii U was around. I think when they were planning the Wii U, they wanted the Switch, but they couldn't, so they made the Wii U. But of course, they're not going to be able to put it on the Switch if it was 3 years ago and they don't know. So in their minds, maybe they'll port it. It really comes down to, is it worth the money to do so? Fortunately, it is built Unreal. We've heard developers say Unreal is easy enough to move over. It's not like a snap of the finger or anything, but it's much easier than moving it over to a system that doesn't support Unreal. So it'll be interesting to see going forward if they do that. I do think if a year or so from now they put it on there, if they include a guest character like Link, it will sell regardless. Because it's Nintendo's IP on Nintendo's system is a part of it. People will buy it. People will double dip probably just to get in there with Link and start messing people up like we would back on the GameCube. And our last bit of news, I'm going to give you guys a pretty cool look, or at least make you a little aware of a really neat fan project that I kind of came across the other day, and I've been checking it out. I think it's really neat. Now, this is Donkey Kong Country 2 HD. It is built in Unity, and it looks really cool. Now, this is a game that is not released or anything. According to them, they're not releasing it to the public. It's more of like, I guess in their mind, like a tech demo, kind of a window into what could be with Unity and Donkey Kong. And it looks so cool. Visually, it looks amazing. I love it. There was a video I saw where they were just kind of blasting through all the barrels and everything, but the sprites looked really cool. I mean, I guess not even sprites, the 3D models and everything. It looked very nice. It ran really well. And this was done by a person named Blob Van Dam. They did a whole video over on YouTube. It's worth checking out. They said they'll continue releasing parts of it if people are interested, and I would like to see more of what they've done here because this is really cool. Again, they're not looking to release it or anything like that, so I don't know if they'll get a cease and desist on it, but I just think it's one of the coolest things to see an old game like that kind of in a new light with a new engine and everything. Definitely something that comes from a fan of the series, and I like seeing this kind of stuff. So go over, I'll put the link to the video down in the description if you want to see more. Go over there, guys, check it out, give them a thumbs up on it. I think it's some really cool stuff over there. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. Make sure to hit that like button, guys. If you enjoyed the video, hit the dislike. If not, leave me comments down below about all the stuff that we talked about today. Whether it is Soul Calibur 6, let's say in a year and a half, they come out with Soul Calibur 6 on the Switch, and they're like, Link's in there, guys. Go to town with Link. Would you buy it again if you were a fan of it on the PS4, the Xbox One, or the PC? Would you double dip for the Switch? I think a lot of people would, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. What about Katherine? What do you think the reason is that it's not coming to the Switch when it seems clear that it should be, since the Switch has kind of taken over Japan at this point and has a Japanese-centric really game and themes and everything, and it's popular in the West too. Where do you think they were just like, you know what, we're going Sony, you know, that's the way it is, and that's kind of what we're going to fall on? Or do you think Atlas, being conservative, didn't quite trust the Switch initially, so they wanted to play a wait-and-see game? Maybe it'll be ported next year or something. I want to hear your thoughts on that, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.